This is Dylan Snowden, and this is the Matt Balaker Podcast.
Today's guest is a fellow carpool driver, former writer for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and the brains behind Dylan Teaches Finance, a financial coaching program. Please welcome Dylan Snowden to the program. How you doing, Dylan?
Matt, I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
I'm excited to have you. I think you're our third, maybe fourth guest with ties to Baltimore. And I ask this to every person from Maryland. What makes a good crab cake, Dylan?
One that I don't make is a really good crab cake because I think you have to trust experts. It's like doing your own surgery. You might see a YouTube video or two and think like, I can do this. I've spent the last few years since we moved to Baltimore trying to be a better cook. You know, being 42, I finally said, I need to be a good cook for my family. And I've tried a lot of things and I've tried crab cakes. And I think that is a space where there are artists who can do it. But yeah, I went to a crab bake last week. One of the best parts of Maryland. Absolutely.
So the advice is let the pros do it. And like
Yes.
you said, the home surgery industry never really took off. So I think Not yet. Your instincts are correct. I know you didn't show up in Baltimore yesterday. You have a very unique story. Where did you grow up, Dylan?
I grew up in Sacramento, California. I was there for all of my youth, and then I moved back there post-pandemic as well with my wife, who was also from Sacramento. We went to high school together, actually.
So 2 high school sweethearts.
Yes.
That's the most adorable thing I've heard on this program. Maybe ever. It's up there. But while you're in Sacramento, what was your first job?
My first job is still one of my favorites. I was a grocery bagger at a nice grocery chain in Northern California called Bel Air. And they spent a week training you how to be a bagger. Like they went all out, 40 hours, telling you exactly how to bag, how to the mechanics, how to talk to people. It was like I was getting ready for boot camp, essentially. So it's very funny to think of that 40 hours spending someone bagging groceries right now.
So Bel Air isn't just a posh enclave of Los Angeles.
No. Someone stole it. They've heard that name probably, and 50 years ago said, why not start selling crab cakes or groceries there? Probably not crab cakes, though.
I was at Trader Joe's this past weekend, Dylan, and there was a person checking out my groceries and another guy bagging them. And it was like the most luxurious experience I've had in years. Like now everything's those automated kiosks. Like,
yeah.
What led to the demise of the bagger?
I would say it's very funny. The company was very nice. We were in a union though. And every year the company would have us go through meetings and they would show a pie chart and they'd say, hey, listen, we love everybody working here, but we're going to show you a pie chart. Our profit margins are like 1.2%. It's really hard to be in grocery. So that's why your raises are going to be low. So there's some truth to that. They also were trying to break a union, probably. Mm-hmm. But I think it's that they're trying to get as much profit out of that lemon and get that juice.
Yeah. Businesses trying to make money. Imagine that. Like I didn't learn a lot in business school. I should say maybe I don't remember a lot. But one thing I do is in a finance class, we had a semester long or quarter long case study about the grocery industry. And I remember the margins. This is the net margin. So this is really after everything, basically what's going to owners was 1% or less.
Yeah.
It was like razor thin, and people purchase groceries every day.
I know. That's why, I mean, if you live in Los Angeles and New York, there's lots of very expensive groceries out there to go to that need as well, to say, how do we get 5%, 10%?
Oh yeah, it's tough. And like I said, like I'm fine periodically bagging my own, and I don't want to speculate too much. In California, there's always pressure to raise the minimum wage. And unfortunately, a lot of these people, this is their entry into the workforce.
Yeah.
And maybe they can't afford $20 an hour. Maybe they can afford $9. I don't know what that like level is, but in some instances, it's very sad because these people who are effectively priced out of a job.
Yeah, it's complicated. Like groceries I don't know what they're going to look like in 20 years, if it's all just going to be delivery or if our AI overlords will just feed us some kind of sludge in our nose, and what the profit margin is for that AI overlord. I don't know.
Yeah,
probably still 1%.
The margin on nutraceuticals and vitamins is really nice. And maybe we'll just pop pills. But so you didn't stay in the grocery business forever. Your career transitioned. Tell us about that, Dylan.
Yeah, I love that job. And I actually still go back home to Sacramento. I go to that grocery store and I still see 4 or 5 people there that have worked there, because if you work in a union job, it can be a fruitful job and stay with that. I, for one, moved down to San Diego and went to college at UC San Diego. I loved it. I studied communication. I did that because I did speech and debate in high school, which I did because I did improv when I was 10. Like, it really comes down to taking a class at the Sacramento Theater Company back in 1993 has really gotten me right here, Matt, because since I did all those things that led me to my current job in communications and coaching.
So you were a yes-ander from an early age, Dylan.
Yeah, exposing myself to the idea of being uncomfortable in front of people, which is, I did not know TikTok would be a thing or social media would be a thing and cringe would be a thing 35 years later, but here we are. And I started cringing back in 93.
You started cringing back in 93. Congrats. And when I was in undergrad, I started taking classes at the Groundlings in Los Angeles. And that was my first exposure to doing improv. And I loved it. You know, I mean, I couldn't wait to go to the classes. They were super expensive. That's a whole other podcast on the Groundlings. But being able to just kind of let other people drive a conversation. And to me, the most important skill was listening. You know, you have to really listen. What, other than listening, or maybe including listening, Dylan, what skills can improv teach that most, call it, non-actors or non-writers can apply to their daily lives?
I think listening, you're right on the button. I mean, that's what coaching is too, is understanding. And listening isn't just sitting there and taking it in, but understanding what that person's discussing, what their issue is, what their concern is, and what you can add to it as well. I would think this is something I've really gotten good at. I don't know if it was like 10 years ago, is that improv that's good, you shouldn't be interrupting people. Like, you should have let them express their idea and then you add on top of it. And I don't see this very much, but something I'm really proud of is that I think I've done it to you twice, Matt, so I apologize, but I try not to interrupt people when they talk. I never do that anymore. I probably did that a lot in my 20s because I was in my 20s. I'm a straight white guy. I think I own the space, and that is not right. But I've worked really hard to say, everybody just hear what they say and then respond. I think the other thing that I would say is, this is more from the writing side, because I did improv, but I did a lot of sketch writing. I taught sketch at UCB Theater for several years. It's that when you're pitching ideas, when you're helping somebody out, try not to do a lateral move, meaning that, are you saying, like, someone has a sketch idea, they're saying it's Batman's birthday and everybody bought him masks and he already has a Batman mask. Okay, that's your script. Then everybody's like, okay, what if they bought him a pizza? That's a lateral move. Give something that moves the ball forward. So I think sometimes when we have suggestions, we have to give thought to say, like, okay, how does what this person said, let me add to it. Let me give a suggestion. Let me support the idea rather than just making it my own. So it's the team effort of improv or sketch.
It's a team effort. And I think the best improvisers are like the top point guards. You make your teammates better.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so it's also good advice for marriage. If, you know, I interrupt my wife all the time and she lets me know it. But Dylan, you know, is a better husband than me, but that's, you know, that's my own.
That's a different episode and possibly not true.
And that's a lot more expensive to fix. But so you got into improv, you know, the rules of improv, and it didn't end there. You know, you parlayed it, you grew it, you eventually became a writer on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. What's the story there?
Well, I loved writing, and being a writer in New York and doing improv in New York at UCB, or it was the Pit or the Magnet, all those great schools that are out there, some of them still there, some of them not. It's a fun place to learn. Like, you think about Andy Warhol in the 70s and being like, artists are just around creating, exploring, adjusting. That's what comedy was for a lot of people, and it still should be. If you're a listener that's 23 to 33 and you want to do that, do it just for fun, learn. And that's what it was. But what happens is that in New York City, there's about 100 writing jobs. That's it, skilled writing job, 100. I think it might even be less now. And I think with Colbert leaving and others, Kimmel, it's like late night writing is not as sustainable as it was 6 months ago. So in New York,
6 days ago,
6 days ago, 6 hours, 16 minutes. Yeah. So in New York, there's not a lot of writing jobs. So what you do see is that at some point every week you have a going away party for someone moving to Los Angeles, which is sad, but it's also really good because there's a pathway, because most writing jobs, most acting jobs, most directing jobs are in LA. Now you could say Atlanta and other places, but really to get your foot in the door, you're going to go to Los Angeles, which is cool because you go to LA, it's like going to the new country where you're an immigrant and you're like, oh, I know all these people. This is my area. Echo Park, Silver Lake, Los Feliz, like all of these people, 15 people walking down the street, or going to that Trader Joe's and suffering through that parking lot, and you're crashing your Toyota Corolla into your best friend from your Comedy Sketch 101 class. So it's a great little area. But
he's just brainstorming. This didn't actually happen, audience. He's just
legally it never happened.
Yeah.
Geico's not listening. But what it also means being in LA, it means like, well, you got to put the pedal to the metal or the ink to the paper, and then you have to really write and create pilots. You have to submit, and it's not, at least for me, it wasn't as fun. Like, it's just writing a lot of pilots that I have to keep having my friends read and get notes from it, and it's not being on stage as much. It's not footing stuff to just have fun, but also I was like 32, 33. It's a lot of work, and it feels more like work at that stage, I think, for a lot of folks. I got fortunate enough that I got to submit with some friends that I knew and some people I didn't to a writer's position came open on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And I had submitted to so many places, but I thought about Millionaire. I was like, hey, quiz shows are funny. They're not like writing a TV show. You don't have to break a pilot. You don't have to create characters. And I thought, I bet I could write really, really good quiz questions. So I spent 3 days straight, all night, putting together a packet of 12 questions. And they said, yeah, welcome aboard.
Wow. So to provide some context, what year approximately was this?
This was early 2017.
And for some of our younger viewers and listeners, they may not appreciate the cultural phenomenon of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I mean, at that stage, it already was a success, but in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was the ultimate water cooler event. It was like a Super Bowl that happened couple times a week. I mean, this was something that really brought people together.
Yeah, I think the trades would quote it. This was 99, 2000, 2001. It was that it saved ABC. Like, they pumped it out. I'm not exaggerating. I think it was 4 nights a week they were showing Regis hosting Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And then it went into syndication, and then Kimmel was hosting it most recently with celebrities. So that machine has been running for more than 25 years. And I think I was on the 16th season when I was writing for it.
Wow. So it had already been kind of established. You don't want to just rest on your laurels. What was the day-to-day at Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
An unusual writing room, because it's also funny because like this is a job I did from home. Mm-hmm. And I remember talking to colleagues who had worked for Millionaire in the past. In the past, it was that you had to write in basically a vault in Connecticut in the studios, not the studios, but one of the spaces there. And it seemed like, and this is 90% probably right, is that they treated this as like a writer's room, and this is a space and you worked on it. But when I got to it, and this was pre-pandemic, they said, listen, you have access to the database. We need you to write a certain number of questions every day. And I would just write, and I would research and write. And I would find there's so many questions already written. There's not a lot of space. It's already been explored. Manifest Destiny had taken over everything. Every planet had been taken over. And it was really hard to refine new questions.
I can only imagine. I mean, when we write jokes or try to get a patent or create a business idea, we all think we're so original in our heads. And then you do a search and you're like, good Lord, this has been done 1,000 times. But with questions, that's a different animal than writing monologue jokes. Like, what was the objective to a good quiz question?
I will give that to you. I still remember it very well, because a lot of people think it's just the fact, it's an unusual fact. But most questions, remember, there's like 12 questions to get from like the first one, which I don't remember what the monetary amount was. I think it was like $50 or $100 to the $1 million. So most people don't know them. Like, most viewers and certainly most contestants did not know the answers. But you'd still want to watch. Like, $1 million question, you still need to be engaged or at least guess. So the key to every Millionaire question, or even I will say, if you are a listener and you run a quiz night, and I've been to some good quiz nights, been to some bad ones, here is the pitch to make it enjoyable for all of those that are participating or watching, is that even if you do not know the answer, you should be enthralled by the question itself. You should still be interested and try to be able to make a wager at the guess. Because there's a lot of ways that you can make a question not interesting. And then it's just like a 2-second thought, but you should be trying to think about it for like 20 seconds.
So marinate on it a little bit. Don't deflect.
Would you like an example?
I would love one.
Okay. So I asked a question I'll give you the bad question and the good question. The bad question is, there's one U.S. president that has a patent. Is it Bill Clinton, Robert Kennedy, Dwight D. Eisenhower, or Abraham Lincoln? Then Matt, you can guess.
Bill Clinton.
That's incorrect. It was Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln. Now here's the fun way of turning it.
Okay.
It's like, Abraham Lincoln is the only U.S. president with a U.S. patent. Was his patent for which of these things? A left-handed desk, a riverboat flotation device, a chess set that swiveled, or a gasoline tank for locomotives?
I don't know if gasoline tanks for locomotives were big business during the time of Lincoln, but I imagine chess was, and he seems like a cerebral guy. Dylan, I'm going to go with chess.
Sorry, it was B. It was a riverboat flotation device. And that's not exactly, if you look it up, the patent, it's something that I've always been confused by, and I don't own riverboats, so this is why it probably confuses me. But it was a device that allowed you, because he worked on riverboats before he was president, and it was basically that it would lift the boat when tides were low. So, yeah. So,
Wow.
you didn't need to know the answer, but you were still like thinking, okay.
Well, and that was a good example because it was how you framed it. It wasn't just like,
Exactly.
what's the president? It already assumes you know something that 99% of people don't, but we all like to feel smart even when we're not. Yeah. And then you can kind of play in that space where you're already ahead of the game, so to speak, and then you're just navigating a pretty small spectrum of cool trivia factoids.
Yes. It is unnerving when I go to quiz nights because I tell people, and it's really a lose-lose for me. Either I do fine because they know, oh, yeah, I worked on Millionaire. Or if I do bad, they're like, you worked on Millionaire?
Yeah, like they hire anyone.
Yeah.
So are you eligible to be someone's phone a friend?
That's a good question. I don't think so. Again, I would not want that pressure. If I feel pressure at quiz night, I do not want to be called up for phone a friend. No, thank you.
Makes sense. And inside any industry, there's going to be surprises or things that people outside the business don't know. What are some aspects of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, or specifically being a writer for the show, that most civilians just would be surprised by?
I think the amount of questions that existed already, I think that it was on for 16 seasons. Every writer has to write over 10 questions a day. They have 8 writers. You have maybe hundreds of thousands of questions that are in the database. Those, bananas, right, Matt?
Love them.
Love bananas. Those little strings that are on the bananas when you peel it?
I don't love those, but yes, I'm familiar.
Don't love them, but they're a thing. I forgot what they're called. I would have been smarter if I knew what the name of it was for this bit. But those strings, starts with a P. There are 4 questions in the database just around those strings. So think about how small those strings are. So I really struggled. I had a really hard time. I thought I get the hang of it, but it was really about just muscling through. And I would time myself how fast I could write questions. I would write down, okay, it's 4 p.m. It's 8:30 a.m. The next question we get done in 20 minutes. And then I'd see how fast that one went and the fast that one went. Like, it was really like, not like a timed experience like I had it to be, but that's how I got it done. And it was a lot of thinking. And the one thing I will say is that whenever something would happen in the news, people would hold it as their question. So like, I was there when Amazon bought Whole Foods, and I immediately went in the database. I wrote, Amazon Whole Foods hold Dylan Snowden. No one do question on this, please. So that I was like, this is mine. Let me spend an hour thinking of the question for it as well. So there was a lot of that, I would say. It's a friendly competition. And then, this is the last thing I'll say. There would be researchers, obviously, who would be paid on the back end to make sure the things you wrote were actually true.
That's good. Yeah.
And I was never the fastest to write questions, but I would say, looking at the database, I was like, very rarely were mine found as false. So that was a proud statement of mine coming out of that.
Wow. So you were rushed but not hurried, or I'm butchering the quote, but wow. So it's interesting that it was so like categorical. Like they cataloged the jokes, and it looks like they had some sort of tag where you could make sure to not step on someone's toes. I'm curious, when you were given directions at the job, did they say simply write 10 jokes, or did they make it easier and kind of limit the scope and say, like, write 10 jokes about historical figures from 1800 to 1910 or something like that?
Well, it's funny, there's a little bit of a kink in my hiring story, is that I submitted for the job, I think in February of 2017, and they wrote me back a week later and said, hey, thank you for your submission. We'll let you know if anything comes up, but we're passing for now. And I was like, okay. Felt good about that packet, though. 3 months later, in April, I got an email from an attorney at ABC saying, hey, we're sending you an agreement to start working at Millionaire on Monday. And I was like, what are you talking about? this doesn't make any sense. And I called them up and they said, has the showrunner reached out to you? Right. And I was like, nobody's reached out to me in 3 months. And so I got on the call with the showrunner. They were like, yeah, we have a spin-off kind of, or a treat we're doing with Millionaire. We're doing, I think it was called Whiz Kids. So they said, we're going to have kids on, I don't remember the youngest age, but it's like up to 14 doing Millionaire questions. So we're going to hire you for a contract. And all your questions are going to be with the emphasis for kids. So that was the prickly part of doing it, because I'd have to be like, not that there's a lot of adult risque type questions, but certainly not fun kid questions always on the show.
You're under a more precise microscope. You're under the electron magnified scope. It's not the little like Dick Tracy one. This is serious scrutiny.
Yeah, that made it more difficult, but also I would just get the hang of it. And I think being a parent now for 5 years, I think that has still helped me be able to engage my small children.
See, people, you don't know what one skill will lead to in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So you're obviously not with Who Wants to Be a Millionaire now. How did your time there end?
It was for one contract, and it's very funny. I really loved it. And I was really proud of the questions I asked. And it's funny that when you start working in Hollywood, you can start getting caught into a certain world. Like you start working in an animated show, you start working on another animated show. You start working for an animated show for like teens. You started working on the same area over and over again. And the same for quiz shows. Like I've had friends who are like, I've written for 5 quiz shows. I do quiz shows, right? Or like I write or direct Netflix murder mystery shows. Like that's the area I'm in. And so I could have gone down the route, as Quiznos, quiz shows have still been popular. This is 10 years ago almost. They're still running. They're kind of easy to put together and the audience is still there. I could have gone down that route and really pushed that to get on other shows on NBC or CBS. But at the same time as on Millionaire, I started financial coaching. This career I've had now for 7.5 years, where I started helping my friends with their money. And I really said, rats, I'm going to change my career now into financial coaching because I love it.
Wow. You were so convinced by this that you cussed and said, oh, rats. That's even for children quiz show standards, that's very benign language. I appreciate that, Dylan. So in a sense, like you got the entrepreneurial bug. You know, as cool of a job as Millionaire was, you're still kind of at the behest of people telling you what to do. And now you get to be in charge of your own livelihood. How scary is that?
It was scary because I had just invested 7 years to be a better writer. And now I was like, well, that's not going to be useful anymore. And that was a big jump. I was like already, I think 34 at that age. And I was like, it's like transitions get harder when you get older. Certainly not possible. Like my father went to law school, I think at 40. So you can do a lot of things at different ages, but I was excited about the work, but I was like, okay, here I'm going on the entrepreneurial side, marketing my work, explaining my work, but also learning how to be a better financial coach every day. It was different. But I will say this, on the entrepreneurial side, it's very funny because a lot of my clients are creators and artists, performers, writers, directors. You deal with a lot of the same. You're not an entrepreneur maybe, but you're dealing with that ups and downs of income. You're a stand-up, you're doing ups and downs of income. And entrepreneurs deal with that too. It's not working at the DMV for 30 years. It's like, what is going to pay me bread for the next 3 months?
They're not W-2 employees that have that consistent paycheck every 2 weeks. It's very different. I mean, how did they know? I mean, you seem very smart. You have, excellent hygiene, but why would they necessarily think to go to you? And I don't mean that in a pejorative way. It's like, you're a writer. Like, why would they go to you for financial help initially?
Well, I'm going to take it in a pejorative way.
Okay, well,
right. I'll give you that answer first.
Let's do this. Rats. Let's go.
Well, this way it was started, this wasn't me turning 180 and say, you know what, I'm going to, move to California and be a gold miner. This wasn't like a big transition. Instead, it was kind of not put upon me, but I had a good friend over who was getting married. Actually, we went to brunch and she told me getting married. And it's like, she hadn't looked at her NYU Tisch student loans in years. I know. And looked at an envelope, had no idea how much it was. And they hadn't told their partner and they were like, I don't know how to manage this. So me being cost conscious said, hey, for your wedding gift, why don't you come over to next week? I'll open the envelopes for you and we'll look at it together because it's really hard to do it on your own. And so she did. She laid on the living room floor, covered her eyes, and I opened those envelopes she hadn't seen for half a decade. And that wasn't as much as she thought. Still debt, but it was much lower. Her brain, her emotional side thought it was going to be twice as much. And I asked her, it's like, how do you and your partner like talk about budgeting or spending? Because this is something I had done being a writer. The way I survived was getting jobs, but also making sure I lived within my means. And so I helped her and her fiance come over the next week. And I said, there's a way we find this $450 a month. You put it here, we stop spending in this area, and we talk about it. And it was really helpful. They liked it. I was at UCB Theater the next week at a show. A friend stops me outside and says, hey, I heard you help so-and-so. I don't know how my credit card works. What is a credit card? And so I talked to them about interest rates, how to pay it off every month. And then another person stopped me while I was teaching a class. And after that, they said, hey, I need to figure out how to save for my kid's school for college. And this became my Sunday day of giving. It was just like, I'll have 2 or 3 people. Some of them I knew, some of them didn't. We would just go over simple money questions. And that's when I said the rats. It's like, this is where the demand is. This is where I'm getting feedback immediately that I'm helping people. Instead of writing pilots my friends don't want to read anymore. And I love that immediate feedback. It's like being a stand-up. You do a stand-up gig, it feels great because you're like, oh, they laughed at it right now. This feels so good right now. And writing for pilots, you don't get that. You get money maybe at some point, but you don't get that.
That's different from stand-up. You don't get the immediate feedback, but you get money. So that's a nice perk. So you're helping your friends sort of as a nice thing to do. Word spreads quickly. When did it transition to an actual business?
I started it June 7, 2017. And kept helping people. And I had probably like 10 or 15 people I was helping consistently. They would come to my apartment in Silver Lake every 2 weeks. And we'd sit down, open their computer, look at their budget, help them talk about their savings goals, figure out what is stressing them out, how they're spending in a way that doesn't feel healthy, and talk about how to be more intentional with their savings and spending. So they feel good. They get rid of that stress. And I would say like that oh rats moment was probably October, November. And then I put more in play that by January 1st, I said, this is my career. And I put my shingle out. I created a website and emailed everyone I knew and said, hey, this is what I do. I really love it. And if you're stressed out about money, I don't think you should be. You don't deserve that. And let's sit down and figure out how to untangle all this.
Wow. Like just 3 days ago, Dylan, I bought these flashcards that should be coming here soon. It's called like Financial Literacy for Kids. And I didn't want to give my 12-year-old like a book, because I thought it could get very dense. And
yes,
he loves math and kind of like the instant feedback of points. What are some concepts that you think should be emphasized for, call it, tweens or teens when it comes to money and finance?
Well, that's when I started really understanding money. I remember I took an economics class and in my senior year of summer school. And the professor broke down compound interest to me. And there's a funny quote. There's so many Einstein quotes that are fake, Mandela quotes that are fake, Mother Teresa quotes that are fake. My favorite Einstein quote that's fake is that compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. Never said anything like that. You'll see it once a year. It is powerful though. And I saw that like, wait, if I don't spend it and I don't do anything, it doubles over years and it triples and doubles and doubles and doubles and keeps going. And I think that value of seeing it grow with being just lazy was just very powerful. So I have some friends who have like a savings account for their kids and probably around the same age as your kiddos. And they say, listen, if you can spend it, you can go buy Pokemon cards. Absolutely. But if you save it in this savings account, instead of getting like a savings account, will give you 4% interest. So that's really great. High yield saving ones will give you that. A Bank of America Chase will give you 0.01%. Nada. The parents will say, and you could try this to make it even more active. They say, listen, if you put this away, I'll give you 8% interest on your savings. And so that they really, really see it grow and incentivize savings. And that can stay in their bones. I'm 42. I think that has stayed in my bones for 20 plus years. And I'm always a big fan of books and flashcards, absolutely. But actionable things like that, it's tangible. It's real.
Yeah. Well, and it teaches the value of delayed gratification, which, for all of us, whether you're a kid or a middle-aged slut like myself, like that's a tough lesson to learn.
Yeah. Everybody's grabbing those marshmallows.
Everyone wants those marshmallows. And how did you learn this sort of frugality or common sense? Was it from your parents, someone else? Like, where did it come from?
Yeah, I would say my parents. My folks divorced when I was very young, and I was very fortunate they had a great relationship, but they also saw money very differently. And I think my mother was very much like the norm. Like we lived in a house. If I wanted a Nintendo, I got one. we had furniture of all that. But my father was very frugal. And I will say, if he ever listens to this episode, which he may, you did get me a Nintendo, Dad. I acknowledge the Super Nintendo. You got me in 97, 95. But at the same time, we ate on a card table for dinner. He had a 1-bedroom apartment from when I was 4 to, I think, 11. And I'd sleep on the twin and he'd sleep on the couch. So he has told me, this is no exaggeration, that growing up, when I told him when I was buying food for my family a few years ago and like how much it's costing, he said, do you know how much we spend on food in a month? You and I, it was $40. And I told my wife that. I said, well, inflation. And then I put it into the inflation calculator. It's like $93 he spent. It's still, I was like, how did you do that? And I was like, well, he fed me, those big pretzels were dinner. A hot dog was dinner. And so I will say, for the record, in case my wife listens to this, we aren't eating pretzels and hot dogs here. We are cooking good food. We're going to dinner. We go on vacations. But my parents, I loved them. I had a great childhood. And for my father's time with me, I never was wanting. I was always very happy to hang out with him and have fun times. We would go out and look for aluminum cans and trash cans, and we would get the money. I thought that was a normal thing kids did. I was happy doing that. Just putting my hand in garbage cans and be like, hey, I found RC Cola. That was normal. And I don't go to that level anymore. But I do think that my kids, when I think of the weekend we're going to have up this coming weekend, I think of 15 things we can do that aren't going to cost us $1. And I think that's really important.
Well, as a dad, what are some of those 15 things? Because I would love to free ride.
For them, it's like they're learning how to ride their bikes. And so we can simply find so many places for them to ride their bike. We live in Baltimore, and Rehoboth Beach is not too far. It's 2 hours. Yes, I had to buy gas and tires degrade over time. But going to the beach, going to free museums, the Baltimore Museum of Art is free. The Walters Art Museum is free here. I think that I am a big fan of, I was on another podcast lately and we talked about it as being make do, meaning we can go out to dinner or we can make something at home. It's like, I'm a make do person where I'm going to make all the sandwiches. We're going to take them with them. We're going to bring some cold water and we're going to make do. And kids are none the wiser that there is a space where people do spend a week at Disney World, that do go to the expensive experiences every week, but really they are just as happy just doing that. And I'm saving for the college at the same time.
Good for you. You can save for college. You can sift through trash cans. There's a lot of
haven't shifted through a trash can since 95. I just want to
sell out. You're getting soft.
I've changed.
So speaking of changes, you're no longer in Los Angeles. You're no longer in California. What motivated that?
We were my wife and I got together in 2017 and she moved down to LA to be with me. She was in Oakland and I was still in the mindset we'd be living in LA our whole lives. One day, she's much smarter than I. She opened up Zillow and said, how would we afford a house here? It's LA. How would we do that? And same story, 8 years later, especially after the fires and housing inequality that's still going on. And she said, we're both from Sacramento. All of our families, 40 people we're related to are in Sacramento. Why don't we live there? And we found a lovely home we could afford on the same street she grew up on, which is very adorable. And we moved there right before the pandemic, which was very fortunate. She had our child before the pandemic, and then we were there during the pandemic to support our family. And we lived in that house for 5 years, and it was a wonderful house. It was wonderful being close to family, good neighbors, and we miss it a lot sometimes.
But you're no longer there.
No. She was asked by an old colleague. I got a text and said, hey, I'm doing my sabbatical year. He works at a college. And if you recall, that's a real thing. It's not just in a sitcom where a professor goes on sabbatical or a funny 90s rom-com. But the sabbatical is a real thing, is that you get to take a year off and you get paid a high percentage of your paycheck. And he said, do you want to take over my graduate program for the year? And this is a dream job for her. Okay. And we ran the numbers and we were like, I've never lived in Baltimore. I did live in DC for a while when I was younger, loved it. And we said, okay, let's try it. So we put together 8 cardboard boxes. I want to be legitimate.
Yeah, thank you.
8 cardboard boxes, put them on a Southwest flight. Because if you want to know the rules of moving at the Southwest Airlines, is that you can put cardboard boxes that I think measure up to 68 inches on a flight. So you don't have to be held down by luggage. So if you're ever moving and using Southwest, fill up those boxes at Home Depot. We did that, landed in Baltimore. She found us a great 3-bedroom apartment, which I love. I love rental living now. I don't know if I'll ever go back to house living. because when something breaks, a guy named Adams comes up and fixes it rather than a guy named
So
Dylan
nice.
watching DIY videos for 9 hours and then crying. So yeah, we've been here over a year, and then we loved Baltimore so much. We really loved it. She worked and got a second position there for another year contract, and it's been just a fun place to raise our kids.
Very cool. And with kids, the objectives when it comes to financial planning, investing, they change. So, like, personally, what are some things you're doing now? Or we can make it broader. Like, for clients you have that have children, what are some changes they make post kids that they didn't do 5-10 years prior?
Well, I think the biggest thing that really necessarily kind of creeps up on parents is childcare. And I think I have a lot of clients right now who come to me, and I had a client who had a baby this last month, and I think 2 more having babies next month. And they are coming to me because they want to be prepared for that shift. It is buying diapers, it is buying a crib and setting that up, but it's also like this person that just showed up to this world needs 24-hour care. You're going to be there likely during the nighttime, 5 p.m. to 7 a.m. But then outlining who's responsible for that human from 7 to 5 while you are either working or you are that person and you may not be earning an income. How do you set aside money for that beforehand? Identifying who that other person is, if it's a family member, if it's a nanny, if it's a group share nanny, if it is a childcare facility. Really figuring that out and then also trying to figure out a step ahead of time, because with us, we did it ourselves during Zoom pandemics. We were handing the baby off between Zoom meetings. Both of us were working over the computer, and it was exhausting. It was so hard. But once we were able to see family more, they could support, and they did a great job. But also then we got a part-time nanny for 2 days. But then we also went to nanny share, and then we went to a 4-day-a-week daycare center, which was really fun. But if you've mapped it out, every year it costs 20% more. It costs 20% more. And I look back at those last few years, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it changed so greatly. And it didn't sneak up on us. But it was definitely like a second mortgage that came out of nowhere. And so both the kids are now in public school, just 2,000 feet away, and there's no childcare payments. And I could buy a Toyota every month now if I wanted to.
He probably won't, but he could.
Probably won't, but those dealerships know I'm out there.
They know Dylan Snowden is out there and available. And that's an important message, what he's talking about. So childcare is more than just giving your kids an iPhone. We learn something new every day. So obviously, people are probably banging down your door. They want to become customers. They want to pay you lots of money for your guidance. But you're just one man. How do you decide what makes a good client versus one you'll say, maybe go see someone else?
Yeah, I think one of the things is I work with a lot of couples. And when I work with couples, it's really awesome because they're coming to me because they have an issue. And a lot of time it's they're at a milestone. I work with people who are like, as I said, having a baby, want to buy a house, want to move in together, having to take care of a parent. Also, with that sandwich generation, maybe taking care of kids, but also our parents getting older, your responsibilities for them are also coming into focus, right? And what I see from them is how are they at the other things they do together? Like I ask questions like, hey, when you go on vacation, how does that work out? Do you do that together? How about cooking or planning dinners for the whole week? How do you two raise your children together? And the reason I ask some of these questions, which are pretty light, is to see if you want to work on your money together, which is actually pretty easy. It becomes easy if I see that you can do all these other things. If you can do all these other things, if you can plan dinner 5 nights a week, or don't yell at each other or divorce because you cannot figure out who's cooking mac and cheese and who is going to make a curry pasta or whatever it may be. Don't make a curry pasta. That's not a real thing. But if you can't figure those things out, then money's going to be hard. But if you can figure out other things, if you're a good team, money's not going to be that hard. What problem with money is that there's not a recipe. It's not New York Times cooking app. Is not going to get you there. And budgeting apps can be great, but they're not going to get you there. You just need systems. And we have systems for so many things in our life, but we don't have systems for money, which is something we do 3 to 5 times a day when we buy things. And you just need a system.
You need a system. And this is heartening because there are, countless apps, websites, free services for financial planning, but these people are still going to you. There's that human element. What do you think it is that you provide that an app can't?
I think it's the accountability. I think that's the tough thing, an app where people are using ChatGPT, which can be a great tool, just like searching the internet, just like blogs have been for 20 years. Absolutely. But most people download an app and then it tells you ate too many dinners out. in your restaurant category, and you're like, I'm never opening this again. And when a client comes to me and we do build a budget, and really what I don't want them to think about is budgeting. I think I want you to get really good at forecasting and predicting your expenses. And I'll ask them, like, how much do you think you'll spend on restaurants this month? And they'll look at their previous numbers and say, like, I think I'll be 500. And if they go over, there's no shame or guilt from me. I'm not going to make them feel bad. Instead, I'll say, like, hey, why do you think you were over this month? What is it that happens? Well, my brother is in town. I bought him dinner a few nights, and we went to a Lakers game, and we had a bunch of food there. And I was like, okay, if you were to do it again, what would you do differently? That's just the question. That's it.
Yeah.
That is it. Because you know what? A lot of the things that we spend money on, they happen over and over and over again. Our cars always break down every 6 months of seeing some kind of repair. A kid gets sick. We have to go to urgent care. I need to put money in my retirement. We go on vacation every 6 months. These are just repeatable things for 30 years. You just need a system for all of them that's very simple, that is sustainable. And then you're like, oh yeah, I don't have to rebuild the wheel every month when a financial issue comes up, because I got a wheel and it's easy.
Right. Abraham Lincoln invented the wheel, folks. And
That's
it's already
what
been
I want
done.
people to know.
Just like Einstein said, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. These are true facts.
That was Einstein and Lincoln. They said it in unison together.
And Mark Zuckerberg, too. It was weird. They all knew each other. This is very, very strange confluence. A lifetime ago, I worked as a financial advisor, and I did enjoy helping build portfolios. What I did not enjoy was any sort of coaching or telling people who were always way wealthier than I was, like what to do with their money. In fact, I felt maybe that's why I'm not there anymore. But my instinct was always like, well, just spend less than you make. That's true for an individual. It's true for the government. It's true. If you want kind of fiscal responsibility, it's easy to say, it's hard to do. But I'm not a professional in that anymore. What I guess through lines or common themes when it comes to getting people to spend less than they make actually work?
The biggest thing I do when I meet with clients and we have a discovery call, I'll ask some questions, and I'll say, like, can you tell me how much you spend in a month? That's a really hard question for people to answer. And it's not like it's hard, like they don't want to, but it's hard for them to actually know that number. So there's usually a big gap when it comes to money. We don't want to look at it maybe because the emotional side is too complicated. It's frustrating. Absolutely. But that gap is really a hindrance. And so usually people will tell me a number and it's wrong. I think I've done it. I've probably asked that question 600 times and I think 5 people have answered correctly. And part of that is that we then look at the number and they're surprised, or they get back to me on a call or an email the next day. I was like, actually, we're spending 5,000 euros or something like that. I have some clients in Europe right now.
Oh, fancy euros.
Yes.
Look, he's not just an American, folks.
They're in Phoenix and they're spending euros. That's the first thing they need to change.
Realize they're using the wrong currency.
Yeah, wrong money. But that is the biggest thing. And that's what's so funny about coaching, is that there is motivation, there is accountability, there is being a neutral third party, making sure that you're not like the money cop in the relationship, because there usually is one person that has to say, like, you're spending too much going out with your friends, or how much did that vacation cost, or what did you buy at Target? That just burns bridges with the person you want to spend the rest of your life with. Instead, you need a third party that can ask those open questions, not as direct as that. But part of that is looking at the information. Once people look at the information, they're like, oh, I don't value that. Like, I don't want to spend that much at Target. I think those Target runs are $20, $30, but then we look at a full month and it's $475. And they're like, I don't want to spend $5,000 a year at Target, or 5,000 euros at La Target. We don't want to do it. So once people see that information, it is remarkable. It is remarkable how the effect is. I want to change. Dylan guides you there, but you are the person that also has the intention now to bring that number down. You have the information, you can take action. If you don't have the information, you're in a fog. You're like, what do I do? What are the next steps? I don't know how to get there because I don't have any data. Once you have the data, it's like, okay, I have it in my DNA. I know what I want to spend. Conversely, you know what you want to save, because people don't come to me just because they want to spend less. That's a means. What they really want to do is they want to save for that house. They want to save when they don't get a job as an entrepreneur for 3-6 months or a new contract. They want to feel comfortable when those things hit, and changing those spending habits where you're not feeling great about that spending anyways, it's a lot easier than one would think.
You're helping them navigate through the fog.
Yes.
As a good coach will do. What have you done, Dylan, professionally that you're most proud of?
I would say I went into this job when I first started doing it. I thought I was going to be an investment advisor, like your old space building portfolios. I think that's where the need was going to be. I was like, oh, we need to figure out what their stock and bonds ratio is and talk about retirement goals. But people were coming to me saying, like, how do I think about my credit card? How do I think about life insurance? How do I think about X, Y? And over the years, I've really built a list that I'm very proud of like, here are the 18 areas I want to help you with. These are the areas we can talk about. This is the menu of service. This is like going to a great restaurant, I would say. And here are 19 or 18 things that I really think you will appreciate and enjoy. And I've tailored that for you. And that took time for me to build.
Mm-hmm.
But that is the life insurance, that is the emergency fund, that is the retirement, that is the helping talk to your folks about money or your brother or all these other areas that we don't think about. It's like, no, we will discuss it and I will help walk you through that. And so just like being a chef, it's like I've created this meal for you to enjoy. And I think you're actually gonna enjoy the process. It's so very fun. Like, I love my job, as you can tell, but I feel good afterwards. Like, the clients are happy to see me. I'm really just glad that most folks, when they come into the room, unless they have something that's a real issue that's like, we have to deal with this. But even then, it's like, I feel better afterwards.
Yeah.
And so that feels very special.
You're a personal trainer for their wallet. Like that makes everyone feel good. Where can people learn more about, they might want to be a millionaire themselves. Where can we funnel these folks?
It should have been the name of my company. ABC probably would not like that. Like, they don't like most things these days. They should head to my website, DylanTeachesFinance.com. That gives more information. And follow me on Instagram at DylanTeachesFinance.com as well.
Do it. And as we wrap up, I want to know, the hundreds of millions of listeners are also, at the edge of their seats. What are you most optimistic about, Dylan?
I am most optimistic about people, I want to say people believing in themselves. I think there's a lot of uncertainty right now in the world. And I think that turns into uncertainty about ourselves. But I think when I get to see clients or friends really find things that make them more confident, if that's work or relationship or finding a hobby or an experience that gives them joy, I think that really changes who they are as well and how they see the world. And they become less scared about it as well. And so I think I'm optimistic about people being fulfilled and helping to change this world for the better.
Well, I can't think of a better thing to be optimistic about. Well, Dylan Snowden, thank you so much. Please come back.
Really Matt, thank you so much for having me, my friend.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Matt Balaker podcast. To learn more, please check out mattbalaker.com and encourage your friends to like, subscribe, and share. Really appreciate it.